Okay, the next thing that we're going to talk about are steps in writing a paper. Now, this is just my personal process for drafting a paper. You can use this, you can adopt it. Most of you probably have your own way of doing things. But if you don't, you can use this. I don't really care what you do. But as I go through this, I will discuss certain expectations for the final product. And they are all APA based, but most people don't get it. And so I would highly encourage you to listen through this and to apply those expectations to your final product. So you don't necessarily have to incorporate this process, but you do need to have the final expectations incorporated into your paper. So the steps that I use, number one, I identify my major points of my paper. I draft my outline. I draft the statement of major points. I fill in the blanks and do a lit search. And then I proof. So step number one, identify major points. This is the most critical step in the process. And the reason for that is that if you're building a house, you lay the foundation first, and the major points of your paper is the foundation for your paper. It provides that foundation. In doing this, what you want to do is you want to review the scenario that you're provided. Most rubrics provide a scenario. So you read through that scenario, review the content bullets. Now, under the content area in your rubric, there will be some bulleted points that are non-negotiable things that must be included in your paper. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you look at those and really review those. Then you're going to take a look at that and you're going to see what kind of similarities, what kind of similarities you have with them, and you want to sort, combine, and merge. And you want to really narrow it down. What I try to do is I try to pull out 3 major points. And that's the maximum number I try to have is 3. Because the typical audience of a paper, 3 is the maximum amount that you can really typically have. And if you have 3, get your point across, you're able to really delve into it, and you're able to do it. Now, you may have less than that, but I would never have more than 3. Now we're going to use an example from an assignment from a different class called The Importance of Accountability. So we're going to look at the message content requirements and come up with some major points from there. Now, as we review this scenario, once again, it's called The Importance of Accountability. It's supposed to be 700 to 1050 words, APA-style paper. Address the following questions, which we'll look at on the next slide. And sometimes there's additional information in the scenario. This time there is not. So we're going to get all of our information from the bullet points under the message content portion of the rubric. Okay, so now we're delving deeper into the required content. And as you can see, there are 5 things that are required. Why accountability is important. How to measure an employee's accountability. What a successful checks and balances process looks like. The effect of accountability on an organization's working culture, and ways to maintain a positive working culture and avoid a culture of blame. Now, one thing that I think is worth noting is that sometimes these bullets are not in any particular order. So you can change the order of these bullets in any way you want. So the first major point may actually be listed last. So you can change these in any way you want. The second thing that I want to note is there's 5 bullet points, and yet we need 3 major points. So we're going to have to consolidate here to get to 3 three major points, and we're also going to probably have some minor points in order to be able to get all of this information contained within our paper. One thing that I also want you to notice is that I bold-faced some of the words in these bullet points. And the reason for that is whenever I look at this kind of stuff, I try to really pay attention to certain key words like important, measure, checks and balance process, effect on an organization's working culture, positive working culture, avoid a culture of blame. Things that I think are important and that may play a part in the bigger picture. So I've never written this paper, but I think that in coming up with an example, I think this was an important thing to do. So this is what I think is important, and let's just see where it takes us. My next step was to sort, combine, and merge. And in doing this, it's very important to make sure that we include all the message content. One of the key mistakes that some students make is that they'll forget one or two bullet points, and you can never do that. You got to make sure that you include all message content. You also want to reduce it down to three major bullet points. So in this, the first major point that I came up with, and this is just me, you can come up with something totally different, but the first one I came up with was the importance of accountability, and couldn't find anything in any of those bullet points to have as a subpoint under that, but that was my first bullet point. First major point was the importance of accountability. The second major point that I felt was important was implementing an accountable organization. Now, if you remember the bullets, there was nothing under there that read implementing an accountable organization, but I think that that theme really shot out as a part of three key bullets. One was successful checks and balance process, maintaining a positive working culture, and avoiding a culture of blame. So those three bullets actually really pushed up to a major point of implementing an accountable organization. And then the third bullet point, or the third major point, was evaluating accountability. How do we evaluate it? And there were two bullets that I felt came under that, and those were measuring accountability for all employees and the effect on an organization's working culture. So the three major points: the importance of accountability, implementing an accountable organization, and evaluating accountability. It makes things a lot crisper, a lot cleaner when you have those three major points. Once we have our major points, we can then move forward to taking that foundation and actually building up our structure, kind of like a house. And that is to build our draft outline. And with our draft outline, we want to use our major points as the framework. We want to follow APA heading level rules. This is critical. Most students do not do this. And I think if you do this, you're going to really figure out that your papers are really going to do very, very well. You also want to follow logic. And what I mean by logic is just outlining logic. And then you also want to make sure that you follow your introduction, major points, and then conclusion. Okay, with level headings, there are a couple things I want to talk about. The first heading in a paper is not a level heading, and the reason for that is it's automatically assumed that it's the first heading in a paper, so it's going to be centered, it's going to be not bold, and the first letter of each word is going to be capitalized. After that, each level heading is going to be at a level. Now, level 1 headings are going to be centered, they're going to be bold, and the first letter in each word are going to be capitalized. Level 2 headings are going to be left, they're going to be on the left, no indent. They're going to be everything else is going to be just like a level 1 heading. Level 3 heading is going to be indented, and then there's going to be a period, and then there's going to be continuing on with a paragraph. Now, another thing about a level 3 heading is you don't have every first letter capitalized. You just have the first letter of the first word capitalized. I'm not going to go into level 4 headings because you should never go down to the 4th level. Now, some people say, well, what are all the level 1, level 2? They get confused about all the different levels. Well, levels are just kind of like if you're doing an outline, the first level would be the first level, and you do the first level, and then the second level, and then the third level. So it's not as complicated as some people think. It's just like doing a regular old outline. So we're going to do an example now to show you. This is an example of an outline for our paper. As you can see, the first heading at the top is the title of the paper, which is accountability. And the reason it's not bold is because it doesn't need to be bold. It's at the very beginning of the paper. And so the first one never needs to be bold. Then you have the importance of accountability, which is our first major point. And then we have our second major point, which is implementing an accountable organization. And then that's at level 1 as well. And then we have 3 at level 2, which we have successful checks and balance process, maintaining a positive working culture, and avoiding a culture of blame. Well, all 3 of those are at level 2. Then we're back to level 1 again, evaluating accountability. And then we're back to level 2, measuring accountability for all employees and effect on an organization's working culture. And then level 1 again, conclusion and references. So it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy. Now let's just assume that we decided that we wanted to add, under maintaining a positive working culture, 2 additional headings, one for rewards and one for recognition of employees. Both of these, since maintaining a positive working culture is at the level 2, then rewards and recognition of employees, both of those would be at the level 3. And I went ahead and added these as an example to show you how that would work. And since even though we don't have the paper written, this is just an outline, I think it's easier for you to see how this will actually work from an outline perspective.